Hi everyone, and today is the March 8th. It's International Women's Day. I know we're kind of late, and but I want to wish all the women in the world um, a happy Sunday. They belong to them. Normally, I think it's not a big deal in the U.S., but it was a big deal in China. So ever since I was growing up, there's this big day that the women were supposed to have some sort of privilege. I think in the Western, well, in the United States, that's Valentine's Day, but now it is a thing. That's not my point to discuss this occasion, but I just want to bring it up and wish everybody well. Anyhow, I have received from a dear friend of our family and some feedbacks for my first videos, and basically his response is that, wow, I'm trying to scare everybody, and that's not good. And I want to read some of his comments and feedbacks. He typed it out, and I want to appreciate his feedback, and I wanted to thank him. And I think he has like really good points, and I might have done something that I don't want to do, like which is to spread panic. I want to give information. That's my intent. But maybe I have, I have spoken things that are kind of scary. But anyhow, so he's mentioned that. Hold on. I was right about China, but I was wrong about, there's some wrong information about the United States. So back then, a couple of nights ago, he said we had 17 deaths. Right now, I was checking, I think it was the US has about 21 deaths from this um, coronavirus. But we're looking at like 14,000 for the flu alone during about the same period. Um, okay, so I did a little chart to see what's good, what's bad from the U.S. from China. So that's from um, coronavirus, 21 now. China has 3,000 more officially, but if you watch my last video, it's in my estimation in the tens of thousands. So it's an order of magnitude misreporting. Um, am I sure about that? No, but I'm sure that's more than 3,000. And I also want to go back to the flu virus because the Chinese government was talking about it, trying to downplay the severity of this virus. They were talking about the U.S. Fatality from the flu. So they're saying, oh, they have like 10,000 people dead from the flu. Why are they on our case? And I think they deliberately keep this number so low to not be comparable to the U.S. flu death rate, just to have a talking point. That's what the government was doing. So, that's one of the reasons that I think, we have such, inaccurate or unbelievable results. Anyhow, we don't even know what flu death, the China has. They don't have good data. They just have poor data. So all the information I'm getting mostly are from frontline ground level in Wuhan. So that may not be representative to the whole situation. So that might be a little bit problematic in that sense. Anyway, let me move on. Also, as I said, both cases, people are dying. Why don't we talk about the flu and why are we talking about the coronavirus? And I think he has a great point. So we need to think about the flu. And as I mentioned, we do not want to compare the two because I believe that coronavirus is a lot more deadly than the flu. And it is a lot more, at this moment, it looks a lot more, it's even more transmissive than the flu. All measures taken, there's still like all these outbreaks coming out. It's not in the well, it's not comparable to the flu yet because it came out sort of later. Anyhow, we don't have enough data on that, so I don't want to say much more on that. And both viruses affect older people and older sick people the most. Yes, and those are the higher risks. Both viruses don't affect younger people. Well, that's not entirely accurate. They do affect younger people, but the fact is that we're not quite sure. It's less so for the younger people, but younger people can still catch the flu. They can still have different kind of responses to the flu. I don't have a lot of data on hand, but I think I've caught a flu, and my son did as well. And he had a whole week out because of that, and he couldn't go to school for a whole week. And I had a pretty bad time with the flu as well. But I don't think it's comparable to what my friend went through with coronavirus in China. He's a couple of years younger than me, and then it was it wasn't good for him. And I also have another friend whose family got infected. He himself was okay. His two sons are okay. So from that sense, younger people are less likely to be affected by the coronavirus as well. But I've seen videos having, showing that there are younger people who actually contract the coronavirus and actually die from it. Anyway, so those are the things we don't want to forget about younger people and then say, okay, school is fine, let the kids go to school and we don't have to worry about them. I think that would be quite irresponsible, to say the least, for our children. As you can see, China has shut down their schools and also Japan. And just for the fact that, and also South Korea and some other countries, just for the fact that I think Washington State has shut down some schools, just for the fact that young people can carry this virus, okay? They may not be getting sick or die from it, getting very sick or die from it. They can carry it and pass it along. And the schoolyard, with all the kids playing with one another, is a perfect breeding ground for the virus. We should really, really dial down the school activities. Even if you have the children going to school, we need to, spend a lot more time having them washing their hands, and then just maybe do that every period, and then have them do activities that don't involve a lot of things. Even if you think, you're in a safe region, and for the regions that are really affected and you see community outbreaks, I think it's very prudent to just pause school. And children will learn later, and they need to stay healthy, and they need to stay healthy not only for themselves but for their parents, for their grandparents, or for people who care for them, for their family, because their family are more vulnerable. So that's one point I want to make. Okay. And also I mentioned about the movie Outbreak. Yes, it's it's an extreme Hollywood rendition of an extreme potent biological weapon that was developed, theoretical, hypothetical, based on Ebola, or based on the symptoms of Ebola. It's that in the movie, the virus was very transmissive. It's airborne, and it's just crazy, and it kills people within like 24 hours. And but however, the coronavirus doesn't. But doesn't mean that it's worse or it's less scary in that way. Yeah, it's not. You don't have 100% fatality rate like in the movie, but the transmission, we have to understand that the virus is better at getting around if it can stay hidden for longer in the incubation period, because all indicators point toward that the coronavirus actually can be transmitted during the incubation period, during from the people who are not asymptomatic to others. So that was actually a tough challenge to contain it. And it went on to say coronavirus only kills about 1% death rate. Well, we talk about death rate, and I want to say a little bit more on the death rate, because our death rate, it's based on the what you might call it, the case fatality rate, which is the number that had died. Okay, this one's lagging right now. There's on South Korea 118 divided by 7,000 something. If you look at that number, is a relatively low percentage. But again, 50 divided by 7,000. That's less than 1%. But that's case fatality rate, and then that's not an accurate indicator. We also need to consider the recovery rate. Well, that's another video that we said. So that's a better indicator for the death rate, and it's not 1%. By all accounts, it's even the case fatality rate is about 3% at the moment, even outside of China, and it varies from country to country, and they don't have data for some right now, or maybe they're in the middle of updating. But anyway, some country zero death rate. Some country has more. Japan, Switzerland, South Korea, Italy. Anyhow, let's go back. So he went on about people should wear, people who are coughing should be wearing masks, and they don't need N95 masks, they just need surgical masks, which I agree and should be fine, and everybody else should just be careful. And if they don't have symptoms right now, there's no reason to panic yet. But I get to that a little bit more later when I compare China and the U.S. Another thing is that only the nurses and doctors need an N95 masks, yes, and we need to save these resources for our medical personnel because it's in this time it's very scarce, and production cannot keep up with demand if everybody just needs a mask every day. Um, People don't need a mask unless they get really close to sick patients. We need to calm down, stay home if possible, wash hands as much as possible with water and soap, with all the things, and not touch your face. All these are really, really good points, and everybody should do those things. Drink a little water every 10 to 15 minutes to keep your throat wet. That's a good suggestion. Um, and also, there are some remedies that people have been sharing, like putting some sesame oil in your nostrils or something like certain little things that may or may not help. But who knows, right? I showed a little remedy with the ginger, so you can look at those. And also, taking extra vitamin D may have good may help your immune system. That's the thing. So vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin C. You don't need multivitamins, and well, people take it regardless. But so vitamins are generally good, and they can help your immune system. Um, and he's saying that this will end soon, and he knows it. Don't be scared. Stay calm and get on with your life, and just be careful. Well, I certainly hope so, but I don't know. I can't agree on that point. I really hope this will end soon, and this is sort of a nightmare scenario. We um, we're in this fear for this thing. Also, I've been very much weighed down myself personally because I have my family and friends in Wuhan, and they're suffering. They continue to suffer, and they haven't seen that. Well, the numbers indicate that it's getting better, but we don't know. I want to believe it, but I don't believe their number. And I know that they're just trying to get people out and not accepting new people into their medical facilities. Either is because there's like underreporting, they're just trying to suppress people to just quarantine them at home, or they're just who knows. But from people in China and in Wuhan, it does seem as like that things are getting slightly better. They're not, at least their medical community is not under tremendous pressure at this point, like they used to be. So let's hope that it all goes away really quickly, and maybe sometime in the future we have this virus around, but it's not gonna really cause a great concern because viruses they also mutate. They don't tend well. They tend to mutate in a way that it's less deadly because they don't want to kill the host, so to speak. They want to coexist with the host. But who knows? That's something about those crazy, deadly viruses that act out really quickly, is that they just kill their host and then they don't get a chance to spread. But this one tends to, just stay hidden and spread out and cause problems. Well, let's hope it can eventually die down in its severity or transmissiveness. But those are not scientific. We can't live on hope. We have to face it, face the facts. We need to give people hope and make them feel comfortable. It's much better than scaring them. I agree on that. But right now we don't know which measures to take. That's super effective. The only thing that's shown effect is the draconian measure that the Chinese are taking. Um, I don't know if anything else can help. Yes, maybe washing hands, but those are not proven. Um, okay, I think that's about it. Yeah, they mentioned a little bit more on the flu, and then maybe 12 to 14,000 people died. We need to worry about that more so than the coronavirus for now. Maybe he's right. Let's hope, but we can't just assume that he's right on that part. And he says the projection is that in 2020 we may have as high as 30,000 deaths from the flu. So that deserves some attention, and people need to start taking flu shots. Well, I agree. I'm pretty notorious about getting flu shots because I haven't really felt um, that they pose any sort of danger. And I've caught the flu a couple of times in the past years. They're pretty bad, but they don't kill me. And okay, so that's from that dear friend. I don't want to mention his name or anything. So that's great response. I agree with most of his points, and I do want to give people hope. But I think the hope and optimism should be built on good knowledge and good information. And since the Chinese is not giving out good information, so we don't have a whole lot to go by because they are the first ones to get it. They have the most cases, they have the most case studies, but by and large, their medical staff are just trying whatever they can, and they're trying Chinese traditional medicine and everything, and masks, and then they're overwhelmed. They've been overwhelmed they still are in some more or less overwhelmed, even with a lot of medical support from all over the country. They all go to Wuhan and the province, Hubei province, to help out. Many of them caught the disease, the medical staff, and many of them, got sick. And they share their things. Okay, he brought up a silver lining. Silver lining is that people would be more, have better hygiene, and people would after this be more open to flu shots and vaccines, which would be a great thing. If those anti-vaxxers can change their minds. I know that some people are allergic to vaccines. Those people don't need to take them, but everybody else, if it should have some vaccine. Oh, by the way, the flu vaccine is only about 50% effective. So if you get a flu shot, you may still catch it. So that's one thing I want to throw in there. One fact. Okay, let's look at the screen. This is U.S. This is China. And a couple of things already mentioned. The number of deaths. There's only 20 versus maybe 20,000, right? So flu, we may want to pay more attention to the flu. We have better personal space here. The personal space was poor during the outbreak in China. However, things have changed in China. They have gone to, over cautious in many ways to stay apart from one another. They stay their good distance, even just wearing masks, walking by each other. They stay as far as possible, and everybody have that common sense. Maybe that's why it's slowing down, which it's like I said, it's public awareness. It's still pretty good. It's been good over there now, but it's still very poor right here because even myself included, when I go to church or something, we still do the same thing. We may not shake hands as much as we may not hug as much as we used to, and we may not do a lot of things, and try to stay some distance, more aware of certain things, and then we wash hands more often. But still, if we learn anything from Wuhan, is that this kind of social distancing is far not enough. It's far too little to help. So with this virus, we really need to distance ourselves from one another. So stay in small units of people, like your family, and because and try to stay as a cell and try to stay inactive as much as possible. So we have better personal hygiene and better hygiene facilities, and it's poor over there, public bathrooms, stuff, it was dirty. And then people, they don't have good hygiene habits. They spit it all over the place. They don't know how to wear a mask. There are all kinds of problems that was over there. But right now, they're improving on most of them. By and large, the whole public is doing much better. And my hope is that people would learn from this and really have a good change of things. Okay, testing kits. He also mentioned that we're handing out 1 million testing kits by Monday, and we'll have more coming. The testing kits in China are very inaccurate. I believe the testing kits here have better accuracy, and they can give better indication. Hopefully that can make a difference. But as I said, 1 million is not enough. If we can do 1 million a week, maybe that can really get a good handle on people and test out all the people who've been in contact with cases. And maybe, let's hope the cases don't spread that fast before we can catch up on the testing kits. So let's say if we can test like 3 million people in 3 weeks, and mostly all the people who had a chance of exposure to that have been tested, then we'll have a really good control on who may have it, and that's the key. I think that's the key to winning these kind of quarantine battles or isolation battles, is that to know who has it, who doesn't. Anyhow, official information here, I would say our official information is kind of slow. So if you go on the websites and if you click on US, well, I don't know what happened here. Where did US go? There it is. Yeah, there's constant updates, so it's not bad, but it's really bad in China. That's the problem, and it's wrong information they're passing out. So that's I think that's what gotten China into such deep trouble with this virus. It really keeps you honest. It'll call out all kinds of mistakes you're making, and lying is the worst you can probably do during this kind of crisis. And because lies are so rampant in China, and it's just the way it is, especially with their officials, and there's no freedom of information, and a lot of good information are suppressed and killed. So that's a shame. Anyway, I think that's, even if we have a slow but accurate, somewhat accurate representation, hopefully we can have a better, more responsive representation. But that's tied to the testing kits, how many testing kits we can administer. That's going to change the game, right? If you have really good information. So information can actually win future battles against this kind of epidemic. And also population mobility. Right now, U.S. mobility is still very high, and people are still flying around. I know people are taking better measures and washing hands and not, using the disinfecting wipes and this and that and spraying things down. But still, people are working. They're trying to do business. In China, most things are cut down to the minimal. People still go to work right now in those cities that are not really badly influenced, but everybody has awareness, so they keep unnecessary stuff to zero. The things like the marathon that we're running today in LA, that's been set in place, and the cruise ships that's been sailing around and just brewing all these viruses. It's crazy, people are still getting on those cruise ships. Yeah, I mean, that might be material for another video, but those cruise ships are closed, confined space. It just happened that our family went on a cruise ship on January 2nd. It was like a 4-day thing, so there was no outbreak back then, but I know how it is. It's just very confined. Your circulation is poor, and then you're circulating among the cabins. Oh, by the way, my friend mentioned that there was Ebola in the movie Outbreak. It was transmitted by air, but coronavirus is by contact, supposedly. But that's not necessarily true. There's like aerosol or something right now. It's like if you breathe out enough and then people stay close enough, they may get it. So it's not as bad as the movie, but it's not that easy. Well, it's still very easy to pass it on. So cruise ships and whatever, war games. So maybe we should seriously consider what Italy is doing with the March Madness and the NBA games, and football season is not in, but baseball is better, football is slightly better because it's on the open fields, but still people are sitting way too close to one another, and they're going crazy, they're drunk, they're screaming, they're cheering, they're high-fiving, they're just sweating, and oh boy, I don't know. Okay, silver lining. Oh, we mentioned that. Better hygiene, more awareness. It's always good. Okay, so I want to cheer everyone up with this. I don't know if it's doing it. I'm doing a good job. I'm cheering everyone up. But I must give it to everybody that America is really the home of the brave. People are not faced a bit by this thing. Even with the cluster death in the Washington state, I think people deal with that a lot better than people in China. Obviously, it's slightly different. People, so far they're not overwhelmed with this situation, and we're dealing with it okay. I mean, we still grieve and we still are, sad about this, about people passing. But the overall, it hasn't, really faced our, resolve to win this against the virus, and I think that's crucial. And I must commend, I don't know, or just bravery, I guess. But bravery without knowledge, without the correct information, is still very dangerous. So there was a sort of sarcastic comment from one of the doctors from Wuhan. He was just saying that, oh, you guys, the Chinese people worry too much. Why do you even worry about the U.S.? They have a really good medical care system. They have really good things. They're not gonna be overwhelmed. They don't need to wear masks and all that. And he spoke it in sarcasm. So I think if we don't look at the official numbers from China, we need to look at the opinions from their medical staff, from those people who has been battling this thing for 2 months, almost 2 months. They're like day and night. They're battling this thing, and they were really heroic in this effort. And hats off to them. And I think it's a shame that the information doesn't get passed on. So that's another reason I'm doing all these videos. I want to pass this information on to the U.S. so we don't have to make the same mistakes they've been making. We can learn something from their experience. The official channels are blocked, killed by the government, by the politics, by all that. But this is a battle not of the U.S. against China. It's a battle of mankind versus this virus. Mankind, big word. And we need to get this information. We need to study them. We need to analyze them. We need to make good decisions. And by the word of Dr. Campbell, we need to be proactive instead of reactive. And that's the thing. That's my whole message. We don't need to panic. We need to be proactive. We need to take the fight to the virus. We need to heighten our common sense. And we need to stay calm and not fool around and do stupid stuff. That's all. So, again, this is a really long one. Thanks to my friend. You know who you are. We miss you. And then when the virus is gone, we should get together. And that same goes to everybody else that's listening to this. Be kind toward your friend, your neighbors. Be kind to your family members. Press forward.